Hare Krishna, everyone. Great to be doing another live a broadcast. I guess you could call it a broadcast here on this Facebook page. Thank you to all the devotees that are following me on Facebook. I had a great time in Brighton. About a week and a half ago, I was invited to meet devotees and talk about the research I've been doing looking at the history of Gaudiya Vaishnavism in the UK, and it suddenly dawned on me today as I was waiting for my car to be serviced and MOT'd. Today and this week is quite an auspicious week for the family of Gaudiya Vaishnavas around the world. Today, according to the lunar calendar, in the Western calendar, it's the 11th of February 2020. According to the lunar calendar, today is the appearance day of Keshava Maharaj. So Keshava Maharaj is a very important personality in the history in 20th century Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Keshava Maharaj was the sannyas guru to Srila Prabhupada, and he was also the guru, the Diksha guru, and I assume sannyas guru of Srila Narayan Maharaj. Hopefully some Narayan Maharaj disciples can correct me on that one. He was the guru of Narayan Maharaj. Keshava Maharaj was a disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And just to fill the family puzzle in, I guess, fill the missing piece in, he was a sannyas disciple of Sri Sridhar Maharaj. So you can see just by looking at Keshava Maharaj how all the different Gaudiya Vaishnav groups are linked. So today is a very auspicious day. It's his appearance day. And in 2 days' time, according to the lunar calendar, or the Western calendar, it'll be 13th of February, is the appearance day of His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Probably after Prabhupada, one of the most significant personalities in the history of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Some of you who follow my research know that I've been quite fascinated or intrigued recently with the issue of spiritual inheritance of parampara, just those within the Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur family. Where are we actually from in terms of our lineage, and how do other lineages link with us? And I guess I was always under the assumption that those in the Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur line were descendants of Rupa Goswami, and those in the that are part of the Sri Raman Bihari Das Babaji group in Glastonbury in the UK were part of the Nityananda Janavi line. But my research has shown that it's not quite as clear-cut as that. I liaise with my own Guru Maharaj, Vridayananda Maharaj, to ask him this question, asking him about the lineage of the Sarasvat line, I guess you could call it. And he said, well, it's kind of a bit of both. We're all descendants of Rupa Goswami, and we're all descendants of Nityananda Prabhu, so it's not quite clear cut. So I decided to do some research myself, and I came across some really interesting stuff. And what I'm going to do later in the week, time permitting, is post some of this research on this Facebook page in terms of where I was going to call it the ISKCON Sampradaya, but actually it's the Sampradaya that all groups that stem from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur come from. So that's ISKCON, that's the Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti, that's the International Pure Bhakti Yoga Society, that's the Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat, that's the Vasudev Gaudiya Mat, that's the Gaudiya Mission UK. All of these groups, organizations, stem from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And in most of those temples, above an altar or next to an altar, you will see at least 4 or 5 personalities. You will see 4 or 5 pictures. So use ISKCON as an example, because that's what I know. You will see, going most recent in time to most historical, so you'll see Prabhupada. then you'll see that Prabhupada's spiritual master was Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Then before that, you'll see Gorakishore Das Babaji Maharaj. And then before that, you'll see Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And then before that, you'll see Sri Jagannath Dasa Babaji, whose nickname was the chief of commander of the Vaishnavas. He was a very unique personality. So one can make the assumption that that line of acharyas is a Diksha line, and actually it's not a Diksha line. It's part Diksha and it's part Shiksha. So for anyone who's not completely clear, Diksha means one who... a Diksha Guru is one who initiates, so one who gives you your beads, one who gives you your new name, and generally for most people in their entire lives, they will only usually have one Diksha Guru. And then there's the concept of Shiksha Guru. So Shiksha Guru is someone who usually instructs or maybe lives by example. So people can have lots of Shiksha Gurus. Sometimes it's the same as your Diksha Guru, and sometimes not. So when you look at this line, again, in all the groups from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, you can be forgiven for thinking that it's a Diksha line, and actually it's not a Diksha line. So I've been doing some research over the last week, looking at this lineage of these 5 personalities you'll see in an ISKCON temple, and where are they from. So some of you may know some of the history in what I'm about to say, but actually it's not quite clear cut. So I've just mentioned about Prabhupada. Prabhupada's Diksha Guru was Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and definitely a Shiksha Guru too, and his Sannyas Guru was Keshava Maharaj. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's Guru, his Diksha Guru, was indeed Gorakishore Das Babaji. However, there's differences of opinion, slightly to some extent, over how he received sannyas. So the popular view is that he received sannyas, or he entered the renounced order of life, and he assumed the title of Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati through looking at a picture of Gorakishore Das Babaji. So that's the general view of what happened. Okay, you go to Gorakishore Das Babaji, we're told that he accepted Babaji Vesh, or sannyas, the sannyas ashram from Bhagavata Das Babaji. There is a point to all this. So Jagannath Dasa Babaji is first in that lineage of 5. But then it starts to get really interesting when you go to next up on the list, or next along on the list, when you go to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Now, it's really important to note that Bhaktivinoda Thakur was considered a Shiksha Guru Okay, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I'll just get to the point here. His Diksha Guru was not Sri Jagannath Das Babaji. His Diksha Guru was actually Bipin Bihari Goswami. So actually, if you want to be reliant or firm to Diksha standards, there is a personality missing on the ISKCON lineage tree. So just repeat that again. Bipin Bihari Goswami was actually the Diksha Guru of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Jagannath Babaji was actually more of a Shiksha Guru. So it's not quite clear cut. And what's interesting is we don't hear about Bipin Bihari Goswami. I read a paper today, and I was waiting for my car to be serviced and MOT'd. I read a paper that was written by Jagadananda Das. So I've mentioned Jagadananda Das before. Jagadananda Das is a disciple of Lalit Prasad. Lalit Prasad is the brother of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And Jagadananda Prabhu is English by birth. He was born in Sheffield, grew up in Canada, and now lives in Vrindavan, and he's the editor of Vrindavan Today. And he's written a paper talking about the relationship between Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who was the father, by the way, the biological father of Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, and Bipin Bihari Goswami. Why do we not see Bipin Bihari Goswami in the it's not a tree, in the lineage of teachers in an ISKCON temple or a Narayana Maharaj temple or a Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat temple? Why do we not see him? Well, in this paper, he talks about a number of theories as to why Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when he was compiling the lineage for the Gaudiya Mat, so the Gaudiya Mat, if you like, is the father organization or the mother organization or the parent organization for all of Prabhupada and his god brothers. The Gaudiya Mat did not recognize Bipin Bihari Goswami. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur prioritized Shiksha gurus over Diksha gurus. He decided to focus on the importance of Shiksha. So there's a number of theories why Bipin Bihari Goswami, sorry if I'm going around a bit, is kind of excluded from this lineage. So one theory looked at is that, did Bhaktivinoda Thakur reject his Diksha Guru? Well, Jagadananda Prabhu concludes that he didn't reject his Diksha Guru. Sastra says you should be loyal to your Diksha Guru, and you should follow them and be loyal to them to the end of time. Even if you're of the view that your Diksha Guru might be doing some things that aren't completely clear or completely kind of gospel. So there is a difference of opinion between Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bipin Bihari Goswami over the issue of conversion to Vaishnavism. So Bipin Bihari Goswami, the Diksha Guru of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, was very much of the view that, or he recognized the caste system more than we would today. So he recognized that really a Brahmin or a Brahman Vaishnava was more senior than a kind of Vaishnav convert. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur took a different view. And there's talk of a meeting in 1911 in Bengal. It was like a council of Vaishnavas. It was a council of Vaishnavas that wanted to really put some doctrinal ideas together about Gaudiya Vaishnavism, in terms of Chaitanya Vaishnavism, what it's all about and what are we meant to be believing. And the report from the meeting in 1911 in Bengal is that Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually didn't attend because he didn't want to be seen in public to disagree with his Guru Maharaj over this issue of the caste system, over the issue of whether a Brahmin Vaishnav was more senior than other Vaishnavs. So he sent his son, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, to the meeting, who wasn't the disciple of Bipin Bihari Goswami, and who could therefore disagree with him in public. And the record of the meeting from September 1911 reports that he spoke very strongly, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, about the importance of moving away from the caste system, recognising this much more egalitarian approach over the chanting of the holy names, in terms of converting to Gaudiya Vaishnavism. There's also another theory that actually Bipin Bihari Goswami actually rejected Bhaktivinoda Thakur as his disciple, and therefore Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur did not include Bipin Bihari Goswami in the Acharya lineage of the Gaudiya Mat. So the key reason, the theory has it, that I'm sorry if people are not keeping up with this, but there's a lot of information here. The theory that the reason why Bipin Bihari Goswami might have rejected Bhaktivinoda Thakur was over a disagreement about the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, one of the things he did in his ministry was to really popularize the idea or the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the late 1400s in present-day Mayapur. And there's differences of opinion, even amongst scholars today, over the actual birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Same about the appearance place or the birthplace of Krishna. In Mathura, if you go to Mathura, you'll see a big, beautiful building, which is believed to be the appearance place or birthplace of Krishna in this material world. And then next door there's a little temple, and on the sign it says the real birthplace of Lord Krishna. So there's differences of opinion. There's also differences of opinion over the appearance place or birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in this very special and important week of Vyasa Pujas or appearance days for sannyasis, I just wanted to give Sri Bipin Bihari Goswami a bit of a plug, because he seems to be not talked about much in the kind of lineage of acharyas from Prabhupada back to Jagannath Das Babaji. And what I'm going to be, not today, because I'm conscious that Facebook Lives shouldn't go on very long, what I'm going to be talking about at another time is actually, are we really descendants of Rupa Goswami, or are we descendants of Nityananda, or, as some information I've seen suggests, that we could be actually descendants of Srinivas Prabhu, who was another part of the Panchatattva. Just using information on the internet would look at who was the guru to Jagannath Das Babaji, and who was his guru before him, and who was his guru before him. And I've managed to go back to 1697, which talks about a personality called Radha Mohan Thakur, who was the great grandson of Srinivasa Acharya, like a lot of lineages from Mahaprabhu, they're also based on biological lineage as well as spiritual lineage. So the other thing I just want to mention really quickly, a lot of you know I've been researching the early foundations of the Hare Krishna movement in the UK, and I came across a personality recently, and I posted on this page a few days ago, a personality who came to London in 1902, who could have very well been Britain's very first Hare Krishna, and it's getting late at night and I've forgotten his name. Premananda Bharat had a vision. He had a vision where Krishna said, you should go to the West and tell people about the pastimes of Chaitanya. He saw a play about Lord Chaitanya about 10-15 years before that, and went to the United States in 1902 and set up the Krishna Society. On his way, he stopped in Paris and London. He was a journalist by trade, so he did work for a London newspaper in 1902. Finally made it to America, where he attracted many disciples, or a number of disciples. He set up the Society of Krishna and the Krishna Samaj. And some disciples can be traced to as recently as the 1980s. But I've written about that previously. And just to say, finally, before I go, I've been reading Stephen Rosen's book, Vaishnavi. So Vaishnavi, Women in the Worship of Krishna, thanks to Caroline from North Wales, who sent this to me. And Stephen Rosen is actually a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. I've forgotten his initiated name. Terrible with names, particularly late at night. But he's a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and he's written many books, but he's compiled this book about women and the worship of Krishna. And in it talks about a man, not a woman, a man who was a British pilot in World War I, who had some kind of near-death experience in the war and believed that God was talking to him, so he went to India. He was a British pilot called Ronald, Ronald Nixon. He was born in 1898, and he went to India after the end of the First World War, and he met a devotee of Krishna, a female devotee of Krishna, and it turns out that female devotee of Krishna became, I'll tell you her name now. Ma Yashoda, who didn't pass away till 1944. She became the sannyas guru of Ronald Nixon, who was given the name Sri Krishna Prem, and he also became a sannyasi. So that's really quite phenomenal. I don't know if he ever came back to England. He was a Cambridge graduate, but he, just to repeat that, he was a First World War pilot, British pilot, who had a near-death experience, went to India after 1918, met a lady who was the wife of a British ambassador. Sorry, the wife, it wasn't a British ambassador, the wife of an Indian diplomat, and they were Vaishnavas, Gaudiya Vaishnavas from Vrindavan. She became his sannyas guru, and Ronald Nixon became Sri Krishna Prem and also took sannyas. So it'd be really phenomenal to find out if he ever came back to the UK. If he was born in 1898, I assume he might not have passed away to at least the 60s. So I'm going to be posting some results of this research later in the week over the kind of spiritual inheritance of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's lineage, showing that actually we have spiritual links to all members of the Panchatattva. I think I mentioned it earlier, but if not, I'll mention it again. Bipin Bihari Goswami was in the Nityananda Jahnavi line. So this idea that everything that we see previous to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is in the Rupa Goswami line isn't completely clear-cut as one would assume, because his father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his Diksha Guru was Bipin Bihari Goswami, who was in the Nityananda Jahnavi line. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you. Hare Krishna.